This presentation gives an outline of the necessary steps involved in accurately calculating Agency Workers Regulations, or AWR, for any given employee. Agency Workers Regulation legislation is effective after the 1st of October 2011. It establishes employment benefits for an employee with any hirer after a period which at its shortest may be 12 weeks of employment. This 12-week period may actually extend to over a year. This is once all the qualifications and provisos of AWRs are taken into account. AWRs also require giving notifications through this period to inform employees and hirers of how far into the period the employee actually is. So, this presentation is designed to help explain the steps of how to calculate AWR. It will show how shift information is separated, then analysed and reworked so as to form an exact understanding of how far along the employee is in their 12-week period. We will continue to refer to a 12-week period, although these 12 weeks may actually stretch to over a year. So we start off with a fairly standard combined list entailing the locations in which the employee has worked and the dates of when they started working for them. We then split this list into one for each customer with a separate legal identity. The first working day in each list represents the start date of the 12-week period with that customer. So, Joe Blogg's 12-week period with customer 1 here starts on the 1st of June 2012 on a Friday. Joe Blogg's 12-week period with customer 2 starts on the 11th of June 2012, which is a Monday, and the weeks are calculated from there on in. The list is then organised into 7-day blocks, and if an employee has worked a day in a particular 7-day block, then that week counts towards the 12-week period. Any week block that the employee hasn't worked in will not get counted towards the 12-week period of employment, except as outlined later. An employee who doesn't work for one customer for a period greater than 6 weeks will have their clock reset and will start a new 12-week period if they resume working for that customer. In this circumstance, what is known as constructive avoidance has to be taken into account. If the employee has any leave during employment, the clock will be paused. However, there are specific types of absence which cause the clock to continue running. This is added here, only to the customers of whom it applies. So, as an example, if an employee was called for jury duty while being scheduled to work for customer 1, this would count towards the 12 weeks, and the clock would continue running. However, circumstances where the employee does not turn up for work and hasn't got a valid reason will stop the clock, and that week will not be counted. For example, if an employee has done an extreme oversleep and has missed the only day they were scheduled to work that week. Once all these calculations have been made, they can then be added together to give the full number of weeks the employee has worked towards the 12 weeks needed for employment benefit of that customer. It is then required to notify the hirer and the employee if they are close to completing their 12-week period and will soon be granted employment benefits. So, in summary, to calculate AWR for a particular employee, we start with a list of shift dates that they've worked and locations that they've worked at, or customers they've worked for. We separate them out into separate lists, one list per customer. We then put the dates into 7-day blocks starting from the date the employee began working for the customer. We sort through these shifts where the employee hasn't worked and decide, using their reason for absence, as to whether or not the shifts count towards a week. And finally, we add these weeks up. Once it has all been calculated, notifications can be sent to customers informing them if the employee has nearly reached the end of their 12-week period.